Welcome to On the Edge. I'm Harold Howe, your host, and today we're talking with Sue Leslie, the voice of the Ontario Horse Racing Industry Association. Sue, thank you for breaking away from the telephone for a few minutes to obviously discuss and maybe debate the plan which has been devised by the Ontario Horse Racing Transition Panel. Sue, the plan, as it's called, was presented several weeks ago, and since then there have been a number of public and private meetings between the panel, individuals, associations, and of course ORIA. Now, the feedback I'm getting is that individuals are walking away disillusioned. The feeling is, in many cases, is that it's all a bit of a dog and pony show, and what the panel has presented is what racing's future will be. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have to be very sympathetic toward the disillusionment part, and I have to say that ORIA is getting the same feedback that you are getting, Howard. The essence of where we're going seems somewhat complex, and certainly is not putting into the industry any type of confidence to invest. And without investment, the industry just can't go forward. And I think this point has been made over and over and over to the panel, so I almost feel like we're beating the same drum. But sustainability can only happen if people are investing in the industry. And unfortunately, the report as it reads right now is from ORIA's feedback, is not encouraging any further investment.
I keep hearing that if Premier Wynne had her way, she would wish all this away and undo what had been done 17 months ago. So if that's true, why doesn't she?
Well, it sure would be nice to think that she, at some point, would step up and do that, because, to be honest, Harold, it would be far less complicated if we just started a clean slate and introduced a simple go-forward basis in terms of being partners with the OLG. It's become very evident, at least from our view, that the modernization plan as contemplated by the OLG and the previous McGuinty government some months ago now has failed. They're not making the headway that they had predicted, and it certainly is appearing more and more every day that gaming is going to end up at racetracks. So it does make you pause and wonder why we're making this as complex and as drawn out as we are. I think the panel are working very hard, and I think they've tried very hard to find solutions. And we are going to respond to their plan in a formal way very soon that will be made public. But it certainly crosses my mind, and I'm sure the mind of most people that have been involved in this nightmare from the beginning, that there perhaps is a much simpler way to be going about this. And whether the Premier will find herself there or not, I really can't say, but you would certainly hope that the people surrounding her and that are advising her might see that from the same light that we as an industry do.
Now, the Premier decreed that the Ontario Lottery and Gaming would effectively be racing's new partner in this new scheme. But is there any evidence of a new mindset over there?
Well, I mean, certainly Rod Phillips attended the consultation meetings, all four of them. I'm sitting on a research council now with some other members of the industry where they're studying our customers to find out what makes them tick. Now, I'd like to think that that is to benefit horse racing as much as benefit the OLG. But they certainly seem to be making an attempt from the research end of the gaming end of it, of what the industry needs to do and what will promote new customers. So, you know, it takes a long time to change a mindset. Harold, as you well know, we all get into our our slots, and change is hard. So a lot of the bureaucrats at the Liberal government are the same ones that were there when the previous government was in place. So I would have to say, I'm sure there are some that are struggling with the new ideas and the new way of going, and probably others that are a little more visionary and moving forward. But I don't think, I can certainly unilaterally say, oh yeah, the OLG is 100% on course and loving every minute of this, because that probably isn't the case.
Does the transition panel now have the clout that theirs is the final word, and the Premier more or less rubber stamps it?
Well, I can't say I know the answer to that for sure, but I think the Premier has put a lot of faith into the transition panel. But I do believe that she's an extremely smart woman and an independent woman, and I think at the end of the day, she will weigh the options that are put in front of her. That's why it's so important that she understand the options from the industry's end as well as from the panel's end, because obviously we're coming at it from two different experiences. So I believe at the end of the day, the Premier will call the shot, and if she's convinced that the ultimate plan that the panel comes up with is workable and reasonable, I'm sure she'll approve it. On the other hand, I think if she's not comfortable with it, I don't believe she will.
It's been suggested to me that if this government could buy into the idea that we go back to square one, clean sheet of paper, start from scratch, a very simple suggestion is, tell you what, let's just put all the slot deal back in place, except you grab another 2, maybe even 3% from the track operator and the horse racing people, and let it carry on. It wouldn't be perfect for any of us, but at the end of the day, it might be a great compromise solution. Does that make sense to you?
It just seems too easy, doesn't it?
That's the point.
Yeah, and so does it seem like a solution? It seems like a solution to me, and I'm sure it seems like a solution to the majority of the industry. I mean, perhaps there needs to be accountability and transparency around it to make sure that money earned for racing goes to racing. But it seems very hard for me to understand why that doesn't make an awful lot of common sense, and also would allow this to happen in a much quicker fashion than the road we're going around. Then again, I'm not a politician, and I don't look at these things from a political vantage point, but common sense to me says that what you've mentioned should sure be at least on the list of options.
So far, horse racing has been very, very civil in its dealings, very polite, very Canadian. But now, why shouldn't racing change tactics and put a real exclamation mark on this mess? Why shouldn't it raise hell, for want of a better term?
Well, I think that the first thing we've got to remember is that we probably wouldn't be where we are right now if we hadn't handled it the way we did. Because when this venture, or nightmare as I call it, started out, the government held most of the cards. I think that we're at a different place now because of the inability for the OLG to be able to make any headway in terms of establishing these mega casinos. I think the public has spoken loud and clear, the same as they did back in the 90s. So I think the options on the OLG's part aren't as strong as they were. I think, again, not that I would say that would never be on the table, but I think this Premier has shown the industry certainly a lot more courtesy and respect than the former. So I think we've got to give her the opportunity to work in a reasonable way with the new set of circumstances that are in front of us. And we probably, I don't think anyway, have given her quite enough time to do that yet. She has made some bold changes in a short period of time. And while horse racing is obviously the number one priority to all of us, she has issues that are much larger and financially much more significant. So, not that we're not on her list, I absolutely believe we are, but along with a whole bunch of other things. So I think she deserves our respect right now and deserves a little more time to try and sort this out as to what the best method moving forward is.
Something we touched on a number of months ago was particularly the standardbred breeders have been crucified in all this. And it's no secret there's been ongoing talks of whether or not they should issue a class action suit against the province. Wouldn't it be hard to argue with them that they shouldn't do it?
Well, I certainly haven't argued with them that they shouldn't. But it's a complex thing to do that, Harold, and it's something, as the legal advice ORAI has had anyway, because we certainly have looked into it, it's something that's not going to really accomplish a whole lot in the short term. It may get some returns to our breeders in the long term, but by then the damage is going to be done. Not that the damage hasn't been done already, it has. So, you know, I leave that to other people in the industry to decide what they want to do. I think, again, I still believe if you look at where we were a year ago today and look at where we are today, we are positioned much better. And I think there's reason to have some optimism if we can get reasonable people to the table that are going to push this along quickly. And we have to get something done before the yearling sales. Something has to be said publicly. The industry has to be assured that there's a future, that there's sustainability, that there's proper purses to race for, that there's an adequate amount of race days so that owners have opportunity to run their horses when they're ready to go. And if we don't get that before the yearling sales, people are not going to buy yearlings.
I seem to recall us having this identical discussion 12 months ago.
Yeah, we did. And, you know, and the rhetoric that came out of government at the time, while they tried to be helpful, I think, did absolutely nothing. And with all due respect to the panel right now, and believe me, I do respect them, but the report that has come out has not, as they may have hoped, has not reversed the mindset that people are not prepared to invest in this industry right now. I can tell you, I have not had a phone call, not one phone call, not one email from an owner or trainer in our industry that says, boy, I feel a whole lot better now. I'm prepared to go and buy some mares or breed some mares or buy some yearlings. But I've had many say that it was the final straw, and they're liquidating.
And we're 6 weeks away from the yearling sales.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's not much else left to say.
Well, we've all got to keep working hard. Listen, I still believe we're making headway, and for people that are sitting on the edge of the fence right now, I know it's hard to ask, but I really hope they'll hold on for a while longer, because we are in a much better place now than we were a year ago in terms of making headway for a future. And I think that we're not that far off from getting some reasonable answers so that people can then make the right decision whether to stay in or get out or relocate. We've lost a tremendous amount of our industry, Harold, I don't need to tell you, and we really can't afford to lose any more of it. So for people who've made their minds up, that's been done, but for people who are kind of sitting on the fence and just don't know which way to lean yet, I say please give us a little bit more time.
Some of them are getting splinters, Sue. Anyway, listen, thank you as always for your thoughts. I mean, and we appreciate all the work you're doing on the front line.
There's a whole bunch of people doing an awful lot of work. Believe me, there is.
Okay, well, thank you again. And to our listeners, thank you, and please tune in for another edition of On the Edge.